What if I told you that the Los Angeles Lakers front office is facing a decision that could define the next 5 years of this franchise? And it has absolutely nothing to do with LeBron James' timeline. Stay with me, because what I'm about to break down will completely shift how you view this team's championship window and the moves they need to make right now. Hey Lakers Nation, welcome back to Lakers News Fan Report, your ultimate destination for all the latest upgrades, insider rumors, and deep analysis of our beloved Los Angeles Lakers. I'm your host, and today we're diving into one of the most fascinating debates happening inside the organization right now, a debate that's creating real tension between the very different philosophies about how to build a contender. Before we get into the specifics, let me set the stage, because understanding the context is absolutely crucial to appreciating what's at stake here. The Lakers are sitting at 10 wins and 4 losses, which is a fantastic start by any measure. We've navigated this stretch without LeBron James, who's been working with the South Bay Lakers as he recovers from a sciatica issue, and the team has shown real resilience. Anthony Davis has been absolutely dominant on both ends of the floor. Luka Doncic has been everything we hoped for when we brought him in, and Austin Reeves continues to prove he's one of the most underrated guards in the entire league. The chemistry is building, the defense has been solid, and J.J. Redick's system is starting to take shape in ways that have exceeded even the most optimistic projections. But here's the thing that nobody's talking about enough: winning 14 games doesn't mean you've solved all your problems. In fact, sometimes early success can mask the weaknesses that will eventually cost you in the playoffs. When I watch this Lakers team, I see a squad that's absolutely lethal in transition. We get out and run, we create easy baskets, and we use our athleticism to overwhelm opponents before they can set their defense. That's beautiful basketball, and it's a big reason why we've been so successful early on. But what happens when we face teams in the playoffs that can match our athleticism? What happens when the game slows down, when possessions become more deliberate, when we need someone to create a bucket in the half court with the shot clock winding down? That's where this roster still has questions, and that's why the front office is actively exploring options to address those concerns before the trade deadline. The league is buzzing right now with trade speculation, and one name keeps coming up in conversations about the Lakers. It's a name that's been linked to Los Angeles for years, a player who grew up in Southern California, who starred at USC, who has openly talked about his desire to wear the purple and gold before his career ends. The connection makes too much sense to ignore, and with his current team spiraling toward what looks like a full rebuild, the timing might finally be perfect for this move to actually happen. But before I tell you who we're talking about, I need you to understand why this decision is so complicated, because there are legitimate arguments on both sides that could determine the future direction of this franchise. Let me paint the picture of what's happening behind the scenes. The Lakers decision makers are essentially split between two different approaches to roster construction. On one side, you have people who believe that LeBron James is still playing at an MVP level, that Anthony Davis is in his prime, and that our championship window is right now. These folks argue that we need to maximize every single season we have with LeBron, even if that means making moves that prioritize the present over the future. They point to the fact that LeBron has defied Father Time in ways we've never seen before, that he's still capable of carrying a team deep into the playoffs, and that wasting any of his remaining years would be organizational malpractice. This philosophy says you go all in on proven veterans who can contribute immediately, even if they're on the wrong side of 30. On the other side, you have voices arguing that the Lakers need to think beyond LeBron's timeline and start building around Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves. These are the people who look at our roster and see the young stars who could be the foundation of this franchise for the next decade. They argue that making short-term moves for aging veterans might help us compete this year, but it could also mortgage our future and leave us in a terrible position once LeBron eventually retires. This camp wants to target players in their mid-20s, guys who can grow with Luka and Austin, defenders and shooters who fit the modern NBA and who will still be in their prime when our young core reaches their peak years. It's a more patient approach, one that requires sacrificing some immediate upside for long-term sustainability. Both philosophies have merit, and that's what makes this so fascinating. The Lakers aren't choosing between a good option and a bad option. They're choosing between two different visions of what this franchise should be, and whichever path they take will have massive implications for the next 5 years. So with that framework in mind, Let me tell you about the specific trade scenario that's generating so much discussion right now, because it perfectly encapsulates this philosophical divide. The Sacramento Kings are a disaster right now. They're 3 wins and 11 losses, which is one of the worst records in the entire Western Conference. Their roster construction has been questionable from the start, with a mix of players who don't complement each other and who can't defend at the level required. In today's NBA, they brought in multiple ball-dominant scorers, tried to make it work through sheer offensive firepower, and the results have been absolutely brutal. When you watch Sacramento play, you see a team that has no identity, no defensive backbone, and no realistic path to contention with their current core. That means they're almost certainly heading toward a rebuild. And when teams embrace a full teardown, veterans on expiring contracts become extremely available. Enter Demar DeRozan, the 6-time All-Star who signed with Sacramento this past offseason hoping to compete for a championship. DeRozan is 35 years old. He's on an expiring deal, and he's still producing at a high level despite being surrounded by dysfunction. Through 13 games, he's averaging over 18 points per game, shooting efficiently from the field, and showing improved three-point shooting that addresses one of the biggest concerns about his game. He's a mid-range assassin who can create his own shot, a veteran leader who's been to the playoffs countless times, and a player who thrives in exactly the type of half-court situations where the Lakers sometimes struggle if Sacramento decides to blow it up. And all signs point to that being inevitable. DeRozan becomes one of the most logical veterans to move first. Now here's where it gets interesting. Rowan Bromett from Clutch Points recently published a piece exploring potential trade destinations for DeRozan, and he specifically named the Lakers as a logical fit. His argument is straightforward. Los Angeles needs another reliable scorer who can take pressure off Luka and Austin, someone who can stabilize the offense when things get stagnant. And DeRozan checks all those boxes. He would immediately become the Lakers' second most dependable perimeter scorer, filling a role that's been vacant for years. The cost wouldn't be prohibitive either, since Sacramento would likely accept a package built around expiring contracts, and maybe a future second-round pick. Is the type of move that makes the Lakers instantly more dangerous in the playoffs without gutting the core of the roster. But then you have Brian Windhorst, one of the most connected NBA insiders in the business, offering a completely different perspective. Windhorst recently went on record saying that while DeRozan would absolutely help the Lakers this season, it's not the type of move the front office should prioritize. His reasoning is fascinating and gets to the heart of that philosophical divide I mentioned earlier. Windhorst argues that Los Angeles should be targeting players who align with Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves' timeline, not LeBron's. He used Herb Jones from the Pelicans as an example of the ideal target, a mid-20s defensive specialist who can shoot, switch across multiple positions, and grow with the young core. In Windhorst's view, trading for DeRozan would generate massive headlines and improve the team in the short term, but it wouldn't address the long-term needs of a franchise that needs to plan for life after the BRON. So who's right? That's the million-dollar question. And honestly, there are compelling arguments on both sides. Let me break down the case for acquiring DeRozan first, because I want you to understand why this move is so tempting for a team in win-now mode. DeRozan's greatest strength is his ability to control tempo and create offense in structured settings. When the Lakers face elite defensive teams in the playoffs, teams that can take away transition opportunities and force us into half-court execution, we need players who can generate quality shots without relying on athleticism or chaos. DeRozan is a master of that craft. He operates in the mid-range with surgical precision. He draws fouls at a high rate, and he's comfortable taking big shots in late-game situations. Those are exactly the skills that matter most in playoff basketball. Beyond the on-court production, DeRozan would bring invaluable leadership to a roster that's still relatively young outside of LeBron. He's been through countless playoff battles. He understands what it takes to win at the highest level, and he could mentor guys like Austin Reeves and Max Christie on the nuances of playoff basketball. His presence would also give J.J. Redick more lineup flexibility, allowing him to stagger minutes so that there's always a reliable scorer on the floor. Imagine a closing lineup in a playoff game with LeBron, AD, Luka, Austin, and DeRozan. That's an absurd amount of offensive firepower, and it gives you multiple options for who takes the last shot depending on how the defense is playing you. From a pure basketball standpoint, adding DeRozan makes the Lakers significantly more dangerous this season. There's also the emotional and narrative component that can't be ignored. DeRozan is from Compton. He grew up idolizing the Lakers. He played his college ball at USC, and he's been vocal about wanting to finish his career in Los Angeles. This isn't just another mercenary looking for a paycheck. This is a hometown kid who wants to win a championship with the team he rooted for as a child. That type of motivation and connection to the franchise can't be quantified in statistics, but it matters. Lakers fans would embrace DeRozan immediately, and the energy he would bring to crypto. Cal Marino would be electric. Sometimes the intangibles matter just as much as the tangibles, and this move would have incredible intangibles. Now let me present the counterargument, because Windhorst's concerns are legitimate and deserve serious consideration. The Lakers already have several high-usage offensive players who need the ball in their hands to be effective. LeBron operates best with the ball. Luka needs touches to get into rhythm, and Austin has been most effective when he's initiating offense rather than standing in the corner. Adding another ball-dominant creator could create diminishing returns, where everyone's efficiency drops because there simply aren't enough possessions to go around. We saw this problem with the Russell Westbrook experiment, and while DeRozan is a completely different type of player, the concern about fit is still valid. The defensive side of the equation is even more problematic. The Lakers need perimeter defenders who can switch, contain drives, and make life difficult for elite guards and wings. DeRozan has never been known as a stopper on that end of the floor. He's not a liability, but he's not solving the defensive issues that show up against athletic teams. If the Lakers are going to make a trade, shouldn't they prioritize someone who addresses their biggest weakness, rather than adding more offense? Teams like the Clippers, Nuggets, and Celtics have multiple wings who can create their own shot and defend at a high level. That's the blueprint for championship teams in the modern NBA, and DeRozan doesn't quite fit that mold. Then there's the long-term planning aspect that Windhorst emphasized. LeBron James is 40 years old. As much as we all want to believe he'll play forever, the reality is that his career is in its final chapter. When LeBron retires, the Lakers will need to transition into being Luka Doncic's team, with Austin Reeves as the secondary star. If the front office makes moves that only optimize for LeBron's timeline, they risk being left with an aging roster and no clear path forward once he's gone. By contrast, if they target younger players who can grow with Luka and Austin, they're building sustainable success that extends beyond any single player's career. It's the difference between trying to win one more championship versus trying to build a dynasty. History also offers some cautionary tales about DeRozan's fit alongside other stars. His partnership with Zach LaVine in Chicago had a defined ceiling, never advancing past the first round of the playoffs. The pairing with Domantas Sabonis in Sacramento has been a complete disaster, with the team failing to generate any defensive identity or consistent success. These aren't just random coincidences. They suggest that DeRozan works best in specific contexts, and it's fair to question whether the Lakers' current roster construction is the right environment for him to thrive. Luka Doncic is a ball-dominant playmaker who controls possessions at one of the highest rates in the league. Does adding another player who needs the ball in his hands make sense? Or does it create more problems than it solves? The financial aspect also deserves consideration. Any trade for DeRozan would require salary matching, which likely means including players like Jared Vanderbilt, or piecing together multiple smaller contracts. Vanderbilt is one of our best perimeter defenders, and losing him to acquire someone who doesn't defend as well would be ironic at best and counterproductive at worst. The Lakers would also need to evaluate whether they're willing to take on DeRozan's salary for the rest of the season and whether there's any interest in extending him beyond this year. These are complex financial calculations that go beyond just evaluating talent. So where does that leave us? The truth is that both perspectives have validity, and the Lakers' decision will ultimately come down to how the front office prioritizes competing now versus building for the future. If Rob Pelinka and the ownership group believe that this is LeBron's last realistic chance at a championship, then acquiring DeRozan makes perfect sense. He's a proven scorer who would immediately upgrade the roster, and the cost is reasonable enough that it wouldn't devastate the team's future flexibility. But if they believe that the smart play is to build around Luka and Austin for the next decade, then they should be targeting younger players who fit that timeline, even if it means sacrificing some immediate upside. My personal take is that the Lakers need to be honest about what they are right now. We're a very good team with a 10 and for record. But are we a legitimate championship contender as currently constructed? When I watch us against the best teams in the league, I see areas where we're vulnerable, particularly in half-court offense and against elite athletic wings. DeRozan would address the first concern, but not the second. The ideal scenario would be finding a player who solves both problems. But those players are extremely rare and usually unavailable. Sometimes you have to choose between imperfect options, and in that case, I lean toward making the move that maximizes our chances this season while LeBron is still playing at an elite level. The Sacramento situation is worth monitoring closely because if the Kings fully commit to a rebuild, DeRozan will be available at a reasonable price. The Lakers won't be the only team interested, but they have the assets to make a competitive offer, and the hometown connection gives them a unique recruiting advantage. Whether this move actually happens depends on a lot of factors outside the Lakers' control, but the fact that it's being seriously discussed tells you everything you need to know about where this franchise is mentally. They're evaluating every possible avenue to improve. They're weighing short-term gains against long-term planning, and they're trying to thread the needle of competing now while building for the future. Before we wrap up, I want to hear from you because this is your team too. Do you think the Lakers should trade for Demar DeRozan? Or do you agree with Brian Windhorst that we should target younger players who fit Luka and Austin's timeline? What would you be willing to give up to make this deal happen? And more broadly, how should the Lakers balance competing for championships now versus building sustainable success for the next decade? Drop your thoughts in the comments below because I genuinely value your perspective and I read every single comment. If you want to stay ahead of every Lakers development, this is the channel you need to subscribe to right now. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and share this video with every Lakers fan in your life. Here at Lakers News Fan Report, I'm committed to bringing you the most thorough analysis, the latest insider information, and the kind of content that goes deeper than surface-level headlines. This is where serious Lakers fans come for serious Lakers coverage. I'll see you in the next video with more updates on our beloved purple and gold. Lakers Nation, let's get it.